Welcome back to the Popped Podcast, where we uncover real, raw, and rarely discussed truths about pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and beyond. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Muery, prenatal and postpartum chiropractor, birth doula, and founder of Move Moms That Move Chiropractic Boulder. Before we dive in, I want to start with a gentle note. I know that the journey for a lot of women to get pregnant or even stay pregnant is not always a straightforward path. And in my practice, I've had the pleasure of walking alongside women who are on this deeply personal and rather tender road. And this episode was born out of a lot of those conversations that I have with our practice members. This episode's going to be for anybody who is just trying to understand their body more deeply, anybody who's been frustrated or had confusion around their cycle, or if you just simply want to know how to better support your hormones in a way that feels natural and empowering. So today we're talking about progesterone, a very quiet but extremely powerful hormone that is the leading player in ovulation, implantation, and maintaining a pregnancy. So we'll explore how it works, what can throw it off, how to get support holistically, and how to be aware without the pressure or this vision of perfection. You know, we're never going to be perfect humans, but we're always striving to support our bodies the best and give our bodies the best, most perfect environment to succeed and thrive. Wherever you are on your journey, I hope that this episode lands, or at least is somewhat helpful in helping you start to get better control over your progesterone, or at least a better awareness over your hormones and where they're at. Where they might be affecting your cycle, where they might be affecting your ability to get pregnant. Let's talk about progesterone. Progesterone literally means progestation. So this is the hormone that is going to support the life or tell your body, hey, we are trying to support a new life in here. We are trying to get pregnant. Progesterone is a sex hormone that is produced primarily by the corpus luteum in the ovary after ovulation. So if you need to go look up corpus luteum, if you go onto Google, look up corpus luteum, and look at images, you'll see this cycle. You'll see like a bunch of circles in a cycle. It should just look like a bunch of circles inside of a circle. You can follow the path of ovulation, the follicular phase, the luteal phase, all of the phases. You can follow it in that little diagram that you'll see. When you see the corpus luteum, usually it's yellow in a picture. It's the outside ring that is left in your ovary after the egg, nice healthy egg that your ovary has created, has been pushed out for ovulation. This is the remainder of that egg protection inside of the ovary. Once that egg is sent out, if conception happens and the egg gets fertilized, that egg is immediately going to send HCG hormones or a signal back to the ovary, hey, we have fertilized, and it'll tell the corpus luteum to start producing progesterone. It's already going to be producing progesterone. That's what the luteal phase is keeping that lining really well inside of our uterus. But once that signal is sent to the ovary, hey, we have fertilized an egg, that corpus luteum is going to keep pumping progesterone past when your period would come until the placenta is formed and can take over that progesterone output. We're going to keep diving deeper, but what does progesterone actually do? So it thickens the uterine lining so that implantation can occur. It's going to calm the uterine muscle contraction so that the embryo isn't kicked out. It modulates the immune system so that your body doesn't treat the embryo like a foreign invader, similar to the last point. It supports breast tissue and changes in preparation for feeding a baby. It also helps maintain a healthy pregnancy until the placenta is up and running. Beyond baby making, progesterone also promotes better sleep. It's going to reduce anxiety by triggering GABA receptors in the brain. It helps regulate menstrual cycle, supports thyroid function and metabolic balance. So it's not just about making the baby. Progesterone does a lot of functions inside of our body, yet progesterone is one of the most imbalanced hormones for most females. I wouldn't say it's the number one most imbalanced hormone, but it's definitely up there. And contrary to popular belief, estrogen doesn't keep a pregnancy going, it's progesterone. So starting off this episode strong. If you don't get anything else from this episode, make sure that you understand it's progesterone that's going to maintain your pregnancy, not estrogen. So if you're trying to improve your estrogen, it's not always the way that's actually going to help keep your baby intact and for pregnancy. So when conception doesn't happen, when that egg doesn't get fertilized, this is what's happening for most of us every single month when our period comes. If fertilization doesn't occur, the corpus luteum has a limited lifespan. So that corpus luteum still in your ovary hasn't gotten that HCG signal. So it's going to start to degenerate, and break down, typically around 10 to 14 days. That's your luteal phase. Without a signal from the fertilized egg, like I just said, the corpus luteum begins to break down and it fades so that the progesterone, and so does the progesterone levels. This is why at the end of your period, all of the lining comes out. The progesterone's keeping that lining in. Lining meaning the blood that you see during your period, that tissue. What happens next? So that drop in progesterone, because the corpus luteum has started to degenerate, it didn't get that signal to keep producing progesterone. The drop in progesterone is going to trigger the shedding of the uterine lining, aka your period. New cycle begins and the whole process starts over again. Your ovary starts creating an egg, it starts producing the egg, it starts all the things. This is why consistent, healthy production of progesterone is so important. Even outside of conception, a balanced cycle relies on full luteal phase and proper rise and fall of hormones. You can catch way before you're trying to get pregnant if your cycle is off. That's why I always encourage women to sync with their cycle and understand their cycle so that they can better support their bodies, better support their hormones, better support their mental state during each phase of their cycle, because it is so different for females. If this is the first time you're hearing this, we are on a month cycle. Men, their hormones are on a 24-hour cycle. So they have a reboot of all of their hormones every single morning. That's why they wake up jazzed and with the drive and the energy that they do every single day. Females are different. Our hormone reboot is a whole menstrual cycle, start to finish, day 1 to day 26, 7, however long your cycle is. That's how long our hormones take to cycle through our bodies. So start syncing with your cycle if you haven't already. This is really easy to do when you're not trying to get pregnant. It becomes kind of stressful when you are trying to get pregnant. Nonetheless, it's not that hard to track your cycle if you're being aware, if you're really getting down to the nitty-gritty and focusing all the different changes that happens during your body throughout your cycle. And I already said this, but I'm going to go through it a little bit deeper. After ovulation, the corpus luteum forms an empty follicle and begins producing progesterone, but it's temporary and hormone dependent. If no fertilization happens or implantation occurs, there's no HCG being produced or signaling that there's been an embryo started to rescue the corpus luteum from that degeneration that it naturally does. So by default, the corpus luteum begins to degenerate around day 10, 14 post-ovulation, and progesterone levels naturally start to decline. This drop is what triggers the shedding of the uterine lining, your period. In other words, the drop is a default setting. So that's why I'm bringing this all back up again. It's a default setting for that corpus luteum to degenerate. That's why we have our period every single month unless we are pregnant. So if this is not your default setting, if this is not the cycle that your body is having, this is where we want to work on our default setting. What is our default setting? What's our default cycle? So that our body has something very consistent to come back to even when it does get pregnant. If fertilization does occur, the embryo starts making HCG around 6 to 7 days after ovulation. Remember, we're in that 10 to 14 days of where we need something to happen so that the progesterone levels can be overridden so that the baby can stay. The HCG levels tell the corpus luteum, don't die yet. We need more progesterone. Please stick around. So then the corpus luteum does not start to degenerate. It'll stick around and keep pumping out progesterone until it's overtaken by the signals of the placenta, which is now producing the progesterone. Progesterone stays elevated, keeping the uterine lining intact and pregnancy moving forward. As long as we have good progesterone, and as long as it increases and stays high, we can keep that uterine lining and that implantation of the fertilized egg. When fertilization does happen, but progesterone falls short, this happens. This is unfortunately extremely common, especially when we don't have really healthy production or consistent production of progesterone in that luteal phase. Sometimes fertilization does occur, but there isn't enough progesterone to support the early stages of pregnancy. This is where things get especially tender and important to understand. Here's what can happen. The fertilized egg implants in the uterine lining, but if the corpus luteum isn't producing enough progesterone, the uterine lining can start to break down anyway. This can result in a chemical pregnancy, a very early loss typically, often before someone even knows that they're pregnant or later in the first trimester, leading to a first trimester miscarriage. This scenario is where implantation occurs but can't be sustained. It's one of the most common causes of early pregnancy loss, and yet it's rarely discussed. Sometimes this is due to a short luteal phase. It can be due to a poor corpus luteum function. It can sometimes be related to chronic stress or thyroid dysfunction, or even nutrient deficiencies, all of which affect hormone production. But the good news is these are all fixable problems. These are all problems that we can start to attune, fix, shift in our lives so that we can better support our hormones. Now diving into the luteal phase on its own, why short luteal phases isn't always a sweet luteal phase. A short luteal phase can be similar to putting seeds of flowers on top of dirt instead of burying them in the dirt. Are they ever going to be able to, actually get a firm foundation within the soil, build roots, and then draw strong roots up for really strong flowers? If we don't have a strong luteal phase or a long enough luteal phase, it can be really difficult for a fertilized baby to actually implant and actually start to grow, gestate, and become a pregnancy. A luteal phase is the second half of your cycle from ovulation to the start of your period. This is when the progesterone hormone takes center stage. It's the queen of the show. A normal luteal phase lasts 12 to 14 days. In that window, this allows your corpus luteum to produce adequate progesterone, the uterine lining to mature and stabilize, like we were talking about with our planted roots, and a fertilized egg to implant and begin signaling for continued progesterone support. However, when the luteal phase is too short, usually typically less than 10 days, your body's timeline gets rushed. There isn't enough time for implantation to occur before progesterone levels drop. The lining may begin to shed, aka your period starts, even if fertilization happened, and the body doesn't get the HCG signal in time to save the corpus luteum. This is called the luteal phase defect. It's not often caught, but it's common. It happens very frequently. But what causes a short luteal phase? We have chronic stress, which elevates cortisol levels and can suppress ovulation and shorten the luteal phase. We have poor follicle development. The quality of the follicle pre-ovulation affects the strength of the corpus luteum. Low thyroid function. Thyroid hormones are needed for ovulation and for the synthesis of progesterone. Your metabolism is regulated by your thyroid, so low thyroid production equals a slow metabolism, which equals slow hormone output. It can also shorten or elongate your cycle. Excessive exercise or under-eating. This can disrupt the brain-ovary communication axis. And then we also have inflammation or hormonal imbalance, especially low luteinizing hormone or LH or high estrogen. Your luteal phase is like the soil that your body is trying to plant in. If it's too thin or too dry, the seed cannot take root. What you might notice, your period starts too soon after ovulation, spotting before your period, trouble conceiving despite normal ovulation, recurrent early losses. This is something I encourage women to really start tracking when ovulation is happening, when their period is happening. Do we have 12 to 14 days in between ovulation and period starting? If we do, Ideally, we have enough progesterone. If that time is shorter, then we can start talking about how we can really start supporting progesterone output and production inside of our bodies. Which leads me to my next section, which I'm really excited about. And I actually just saw a little clip from the Village Sessions podcast of Corey Malloy talking about the raw carrot salad. So I think in the clip that I saw on Instagram, she's talking about the raw carrot salad in relation to younger looking skin, healthy looking skin, lips, just keeping the body in its natural aging process and not falling into the cortisol dependent lifestyle that ages our bodies way quicker. The way I'm going to talk about it is supporting progesterone for preconception. So it sounds simple, like it's too good to be true, but eating a raw carrot salad can really help balance your hormones. And let's talk about why. And in order to talk about why this even happens, you really need to understand the difference between estrogen and progesterone and why they work together, but also don't really work together, but balance each other out, but don't always balance each other out. Let's talk about it. Estrogen builds the uterine lining during the first half of your cycle. Progesterone stabilizes and maintains the lining after ovulation. When these hormones are in sync, everything flows. When they're not, things start to get messy. Heavy periods, PMS, mood swings, fertility issues. You don't need high estrogen to have problems. You just need not enough progesterone to balance it out to have problems. I know that might have been confusing, but I'm going to explain what that means. Think about this as the estrogen being the accelerator and progesterone being the brakes. If you also happen to have any education on glucose and insulin, if you have diabetes or know somebody who has diabetes, or you're just really educated on glucose and insulin, it's very similar to how glucose and insulin work each other out. Insulin really makes sure that glucose doesn't get overfilled in our body. It's the same here. Progesterone is going to make sure that we don't have too much estrogen in the body. Kind of. Different, but kind of. What causes estrogen to become imbalanced or dominant? Poor estrogen elimination. So if your liver or your gut isn't clearing out estrogen properly, it recirculates and it starts to build up. Constipation or low fiber intake. This slows down estrogen clearance via the bowels. Environmental estrogens. So these are called xenoestrogens. They're found everywhere. So you have to be thoughtful, but they're also everywhere in our plastics, in our microplastics, in our receipts, in our hair care products, in our lotions, in our candles, in our room misters, perfumes. There's a lot of these xenoestrogens in a lot of our environmental factors that we have around us or use every single day. And these xenoestrogens, they mimic estrogen. And so when they're in our body, they start to bind to those estrogen receptors. And what do you know? The rest of the estrogen in the body is going to build up. We're going to have this excess buildup of estrogen in the body. Then we also have low estrogen or low progesterone levels. Estrogen becomes dominant not because it's too high, but because progesterone is too low to keep it in check. Alcohol, sugar, and ultra-processed foods, these stress the liver out. They spike your insulin, and they can increase estrogen production or impair its clearance through that liver and the bowels, because the liver and the bowels will prioritize clearing out alcohol and high sugars, ultra-processed foods, before it prioritizes estrogen. And then we have hormonal birth control or hormone replacement therapy. This introduces synthetic estrogens that may increase overall estrogen load in some women. Again, it's not always that you have too much estrogen. A lot of times it's that you don't have enough progesterone to take care of the excess amount of estrogen. Now enter stress and cortisol. Chronic stress increases cortisol, your body's main stress hormone. Cortisol and progesterone share the precursor called, I'm going to say this wrong, but I hope I say it right, pregnenolone. Pregnenolone. Either way, pregnenolone is the precursor for both progesterone and cortisol. So if you think about if you think about your hormones as sports drinks, there's ingredients that you have to make said sports drink. So like the main juice that goes into all of Gatorades, even though it's not the flavor, it's the main juice, that's a precursor. We put precursors to start things, and then we add things to make it their own thing. So this precursor, pregnenolone, starts the production or starts the cell makeup of progesterone, but it also does that for cortisol. However, in your body will always prioritize cortisol stress over progesterone. So if you have more cortisol stress, your body is going to constantly be precursing for that cortisol versus precursing to make any more or a normal stable amount of progesterone. Man, I hope that made sense. If you're not watching the YouTube version, maybe that will help because I talk with my hands, but hopefully that made sense. Anyways, under stress, your body is going to shunt the pregnenolone, that precursor, towards cortisol. So like I said, it's going to prioritize that stress hormone, that cortisol, leaving less of that pregnenolone, that precursor, for progesterone. This is called the pregnenolone steal. I know that I'm saying that wrong, but we're just going to keep saying it that way. Pregnenolone. Pregnenolone? Yeah, it's sounding better and better every time I say it. Less progesterone means estrogen becomes unopposed, even if estrogen levels haven't changed. So all day, your estrogen levels slowly rise, but all day, so do your progesterone levels. They slowly rise, so they keep that estrogen in check. However, if you're extremely stressed out and the precursor that's supposed to help make that progesterone rise with that estrogen isn't actually helping any progesterone because it's focused on making cortisol, it's going to take forever for that progesterone to catch up to the estrogen to balance it out, right? Then we already have an estrogen imbalance. We have too much estrogen in the body, not because we have any extra estrogen, but because we don't have enough progesterone to balance it out. Now that we have all of that covered, we're going to get into the raw carrot salad that I had talked about previously, and how this actually helps with balancing all of those hormones. So the raw carrot salad was actually discovered by Ray Peat. Go ahead and look it up. Ray Peat, raw carrot salad. You can look up the backstory, the history, how different practices use it, or you can just listen to me talk about it right here. Raw carrots contain special fibers and antibacterial compounds that bind to excess estrogen in the gut. That helps escort that extra estrogen out of our bodies when we pee, poop, have a bowel movement. The classic hormone-friendly salad includes shredded raw carrot, coconut or olive oil, vinegar or lemon juice, and then sea salt. It's a simple daily ritual that can gently support estrogen balance, especially if constipation or sluggish detox is part of the picture. One carrot salad isn't going to fix your hormones, but a daily detox support is game changer. Corey Malloy, who was talking about this on their podcast, she was talking about doing she does 30-day raw carrot challenges with her clients. And so if this is something that you're trying to support in your body before you go to hormone replacement therapy or whatever it is, this is something that you can try for 1 month and see if it really shifts how your luteal phase lasts. Maybe it extends that luteal phase. Maybe it gives just enough progesterone or helps support that progesterone pump out during that luteal phase to maintain a pregnancy just a little bit better. So if you're looking for something to shift your mindset, maybe do something different to help your body prepare for a successful pregnancy, try the month challenge, raw carrot salad month challenge, 30-day challenge. It's 30 days. You can do it. You can look up the recipe that you want to use so that it's a little bit more specific than what I just put here. It doesn't need to be a huge salad. It's like 1 raw carrot, the vinegar, and then some sea salt or some lemon juice. At the very least, if this 30-day raw carrot challenge doesn't completely shift your luteal phase, it will at least really help clear out your skin. It will help balance your estrone. Now I'm saying all of the hormones together. It'll help balance your estrogen and your progesterone levels together. And it's one new fun natural tool that you could try to help support your hormones other than hormone replacement therapy. Okay, you guys, I'm super excited about this new sponsor because it's somebody I've actually been working with for a while now called The Final Punctuation. It's a female-owned, one-woman editing and proofreading service. Her name is Carrie, and she has completely changed how confident I feel putting my words into the world. She's helped me with everything from my brochures to my doula contracts to small marketing things. And not only is her turnaround time incredible, but she helps you to understand the why behind her edits. She sees things that I would have never caught and somehow keeps your voice intact while making everything stronger, cleaner, and clearer. She works with all kinds of creators, from bloggers, podcasters, to small business owners, marketing folks, and even students. Anyone putting their words out into the world. And if you've ever posted something and noticed a typo after, you know how it feels. One tiny error can totally kill that first impression. In fact, stats show that only one typo can increase bounce rates by up to 85%, and grammar mistakes turn away nearly 60% of readers. And I know what you're thinking about AI. Can it just take care of all my grammar mechanics? AI still struggles with tone, nuance, and accuracy, which is not a great combo if you're trying to earn trust. So if you're writing anything from podcasts to brochures, website copy, marketing materials, let Carrie take a look at it. Visit thefinalpunctuation.com to submit a request for any project and tell her that you're a Popped Podcast listener for 15% off your first order. That's thefinalpunctuation.com. Now let's get back to the episode. One more thing I want to talk about with estrogen amplifying stress response. When you have an excess buildup of estrogen in your body, it can cause you to be a little bit more reactive to cortisol. Even if there isn't excess cortisol in your system, it can make you more reactive to stress. This makes your hormonal balance feel even worse. Hello, mood swings. Hello, anxiety, irritability. This is really where we just have too much estrogen. We have a natural stressor in life and we're overreactive. A lot of times that has to do with your estrogen imbalance, less with your mood. But your mood is completely affected by your estrogen. So maybe it is affecting your mood too. So what can you do to support your hormone balance other than the carrot salad that we talked about? That's supporting your progesterone. And eliminating estrogen out of the body. Eat fiber-rich foods daily, like carrots, flax, chia, and greens. We like flaxseed in my family. We like to put it in a little cup of water in the morning, blend it up. Usually it's not that bad. Texture's a little funky, but we get our flax every morning. Minimize your xenoestrogens by switching to non-toxic body and cleaning products. This also includes perfumes and candles, which I am guilty of. I know it's not always easy to get rid of some of these rather environmentally exciting things that make us feel good and warm and cozy in our homes, but there are clean versions of pretty much everything in life. So really start looking for those non-toxic candles, non-toxic perfume, non-toxic body wash, really clean, organic, raw materials that we are using in and around our bodies and our homes. Support your liver, hydrate and get enough minerals. Avoid alcohol when possible. Balance your blood sugar and keep cortisol in check. Protein, fat, and fiber at each meal. Protein, fat, and fiber at each meal, especially if you're trying to get pregnant. Protein, fat, and fiber in each meal. I hope that sticks in your brain. Move your body daily to support lymphatic drainage and elimination. This is not telling you to go power lift every single day. You do not need to be running high endurance speeds. We want to maintain our cortisol levels where they're at. We do not need to be increasing stress in the body, and exercise does release cortisol in the body. Usually it's good stress, right? We always call exercising good stress on the body. However, if we're constantly over exercising and we're keeping that cortisol high peaked in the body because we're exercising so much or doing so much intense work, it can really deplete the body's ability to actually get pregnant. Focus on your sleep and nervous system regulation, chiropractic, breath work, vagus nerve stimulation. I have a lot of women who come into my practice who are coming in because they're like, my shoulder hurts or my knee, something. And through my questionnaire, I always ask about how hormones are, how digestive system is, anything that's related to the nervous system. And frequently I will get clients that are, oh yeah, my hormones are out of whack, I am trying to get pregnant. And they kind of throw their hand like that. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's happening in your body where you are trying to get pregnant, but can't get pregnant. Whatever it is, we'll go down that pathway. And a lot of times it comes out that there is some low back discomfort, but it's been there forever. Or maybe that's the main reason that they're coming in. And I show them on our big chart, look, your low back nerves go directly to your reproductive organs. So if your low back nerves are being compressed or not getting enough communication from your brain because of their misalignment or because of the posture you're sitting in every day or the compression that it's experienced for the last 20 years, those nerves are not getting enough communication to the uterus, to the ovaries, in order for your body to produce the hormones and get the communication from your brain. Hey, we're in the middle of this part of our cycle, so that those hormones are being produced, so that that part of your cycle is supported, so that the next part of the cycle is supported if it's pregnancy. Blah, 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 blah. We go through this whole story picture. They're like, oh my gosh, maybe that's why I'm not getting pregnant. We'll get them adjusted. And it's happened multiple times now where 3, 4, 5, sometimes 10 random weeks later, all of a sudden, mom's pregnant. Oh, guess what? We adjusted her all those weeks and we were opening up all that space for her low back nerves to get to her reproductive organs so that those reproductive organs can get signals from the brain and from other hormones that XYZ is happening to carry on for a pregnant. I never claimed to get people pregnant in my practice, but a lot of times we have people who come in for a general chiropractic complaint and they end up pregnant. And we get to work together throughout their entire pregnancy. So there is so much you can do to support your body during preconception outside of medicine. And this is not to say that that's going to be the journey for everybody. There are some people who need some support with Western medicine. And how cool is it that we are in a society where we have access to that for our moms who were born to be moms and now can't naturally conceive or get there just by having intercourse and then getting pregnant. So it's okay if you need all these other ways to support your body to get pregnant. We live in a society where we are so far driven away from what our natural bodies were meant to do through the majority of our lives that it is really difficult to get to this natural state of being, which is pregnant, because we don't do all the natural things now to get there all the time. So it's okay if you need chiropractic. It's okay if you need to do breath work. It's okay if you need psychosomatic work. It's okay if you need craniosacral work. It's okay if you're trying lots of different things. I know it's easier said than done. Try not to stress about it. That's only going to add onto the list of things that you need to work on to help prepare your body for pregnancy. The more stressed we are, the more work you're going to have to do to become unstressed to allow pregnancy to happen. So again, I know it's so much easier said than done, not stressing and trying to just relax and enjoy the moment. But maybe instead of stressing about getting pregnant, stress or get excited about learning about pregnancy, how you can support your body to become pregnant. It is so empowering and you will feel empowered. You will feel 10 times more empowered doing this type of work, doing this type of research and actual preparation for your body when you're doing it on your own. When you do that research by yourself, when you listen to podcasts of hours on end and you're accumulating all this information, you're doing the work. You are doing the work. You should be proud of yourself, but take some of these actionable items and actually go do them. Try the 30 raw carrot salad or try going to the chiropractor. They may help you find your way to pregnancy or find areas in your body that are actually keeping your body from supporting a healthy pregnancy. Speaking of chiropractic, the nervous system and preconception. Your nervous system has two main settings, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is our fight or flight. We've talked about it before. Parasympathetic is our rest, digest, reproduce, have a baby. For conception to be possible, your hormones have to stay balanced and your body needs to have access to the parasympathetic mode. It doesn't have to be in parasympathetic mode. The reality about parasympathetic and sympathetic, we always think like, you don't want to live your life in sympathetic, fight or flight. You want to be in parasympathetic, rest and digest. Yeah, realistically, your body is constantly doing both. It's sympathetic, parasympathetic, sympathetic, parasympathetic. There's lots of systems in your body that require the sympathetic nervous system to continue to keep pumping. There's a lot of things in your system that require the parasympathetic nervous system to keep pumping, to keep it going. So these two systems are constantly going to be going. However, it can happen where one becomes more dominant. So if we become more dominant in our sympathetic, where parasympathetic isn't bringing us back to that natural balanced state, we can start becoming more and more stressed and more dominant in this sympathetic mode. If it's hard for you to go to sleep at night outside of pregnancy, if you're not pregnant, I'm only making this note, if you're not pregnant, you might find that it's hard to go to sleep at night. That's your body in its sympathetic dominance. Parasympathetic dominance is more of our not necessarily, but more of our narcoleptic friends who could fall asleep anywhere. My dad, who falls asleep during every show that he watches. When he's not working in his dominant sympathetic mode, he is dominant parasympathetic. He could fall asleep anywhere. We want to find that balance throughout all of our days and throughout all of the day. If you go to the dentist, they're looking for cavities. If you go to the chiropractor, we're looking for subluxations. Subluxation is a misalignment in the body with nerve involvement, leading to XYZ symptoms that are affecting your daily lifestyle. When you come in, we are looking for these subluxations, these misalignments in the spine, where your nervous system is under stress, keeping you in that sympathetic dominant state. Subluxations often show up after physical, emotional, or chemical stress as they accumulate if not addressed. Newsflash, you have physical, emotional, and chemical stress happening to your body every single day. The air around you, your posture, the clothes on your body, literally everything in your body accumulates stress in some way. All stress is not bad stress. However, stress is stress, and stress does build up, and it leads us into this overridden body where we can't come out from this stress. So we need to make sure that we're able to process the stress that does come through our body, because it is so natural to happen every single day. Chiropractic's also going to help control or regulate the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is the command center for both stress response and hormone production. When the nervous system is balanced, cortisol decreases, sleep improves, progesterone rises naturally, ovulation becomes more reliable, and the body shifts into a state that welcomes conception instead of resisting it. The body doesn't need to be forced into pregnancy. It just needs the interference removed so that it can do what it was designed to do. This is chiropractic. I could use the same statement with pregnancy removed, and it would stand the same for general humans, humans who are not pregnant. Chiropractic is designed to remove the interference so that the body can do what it was designed to do at its best. Go see your chiropractor if you are on your fertility journey, trying to conceive, trying to maintain pregnancy, having difficulty with multiple losses early on. I'm now hitting the mic. Go see your chiropractor. Go see a chiropractor. Go see a pregnancy-specific chiropractor who can support your body in preconception. It's one of the best ways to naturally care for your body and bring it to a state that welcomes all of life in a healthy, manageable way. Let's move on to building a fertile ecosystem. We're almost done here. I know this has been probably a longer episode. I don't know. We'll see. By now we know that progesterone is essential and that things like stress, gut health, and nervous system regulation all play a role. But let's talk about what it actually looks like to build a lifestyle that invites hormonal balance, specifically a progesterone-friendly ecosystem. First, ovulation is our goal. You cannot make progesterone without ovulating. No ovulation equals no corpus luteum equals no progesterone. So even if your period seems regular, if you are not ovulating, you are likely not producing enough progesterone. If you do not do ovulation pee strips in the morning, consider starting them so that you can track when you ovulate. Key foundations for ovulation and progesterone production. Nutrient must-haves. You must have these nutrients in your diet. Vitamin B6, magnesium, zinc, cholesterol, vitamin C, and iron. Let me go through those quickly. Vitamin B6, essential for progesterone synthesis and the luteal phase support. Magnesium helps reduce cortisol and support hormone metabolism. Zinc supports healthy follicle development and egg quality. Cholesterol, yes, you need it. The raw material is for all steroid hormones. Vitamin C supports the adrenal glands and corpus luteum function. And then iron is needed for proper follicular development and oxygen transport. Your hormones are built from your food. If you do not give your body the bricks, it cannot build the house. Seed cycling and cycle awareness. Seed cycling uses different seeds during the follicular and luteal phases to gently support the hormonal shifts. Flaxseed and pumpkin seeds for estrogen, sesame and sunflower seeds for progesterone. Again, though, you have to be cycle tracking and know when you're taking these seeds to help support that hormone in your phase. Cycle tracking gives you an insight to ovulation, luteal length, and subtle hormone shifts that affect how you feel month to month. Blood sugar balance. Blood sugar swings lead to insulin resistance, which interferes with your ovulation and promotes estrogen dominance. Long story short, when you overeat sugar, and we have sugar build up, too much sugar in the body, your insulin is not going to be able to take it down, similar to the progesterone and estrogen, what I've been talking about this whole episode. Insulin won't be able to regulate that amount of glucose, and it's just going to lead to further estrogen dominance in the body, which what we've talked about, we don't need. We need more progesterone. We need progesterone to balance out the amount of estrogen that's already in our bodies. Eat protein, fat, fiber with every meal. Like I said earlier, protein, fat, fiber, every single meal to avoid these crashes and cortisol spikes. Balanced blood sugar is one of the most underrated ways to support hormone health, especially here in America. We're not always super focused on every single ingredient that's coming into our body, yet we should be, because it's really affecting our hormonal support within our bodies and our hormonal regulation throughout every single month. Movement and body flow. Moderate, consistent movement supports pelvic blood flow, lymphatic drainage, and stress reduction. Walking, yoga, dance, gentle strength training all promote hormonal harmony without spiking cortisol. Nervous system support, like we talked about in the last section, chiropractic care, breath work, slowing down just to help the nervous system shift out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. Remember, we don't want a huge dominance on either side. We want to be really balanced in between both. However, in that parasympathetic side, when we can find some more dominance over there, we can help better support the HPA axis, which manages both stress and reproductive hormones. We have adequate calories and fats. Undereating or cutting fat can shut down ovulation. Make sure you're eating enough. The body interrupts restriction as scarcity and reproduction is deprioritized. Adequate calories and fats. Undereating or cutting fat can shut down ovulation. Your body interprets restriction as scarcity and reproduction is deprioritized. If your body can't function well on its own, it's not going to help another body function. Progesterone is literally made from cholesterol, so include whole food fats like egg yolks, avocados, grass-fed butter, coconut oil, olive oil. Thyroid function reminder. A sluggish thyroid disrupts ovulation and lowers progesterone production. Common signs: fatigue, cold hands or feet, constipation, hair thinning, low basal temperatures. If you suspect an issue, ask your provider for a full thyroid panel. They will go through all of your different thyroid hormones and see what is elevated, what's not elevated, what's being produced, what's not being produced, all the things. It's really great. It really can tell us how well our thyroid is helping synthesize the majority of our hormones in our body. Reduce hidden stressors. Stress is not always loud. Sometimes it hides in chronic inflammation, unhealed trauma, poor sleep, or gut dysfunction. A lot of us have gut dysfunction, and we don't know it, or we kind of know it, but we don't really do anything about it. So really making sure that we have great gut function, great gut flora, great gut microbiome. There's so much that you can do to make sure that your gut is ready to help support both your system and a system for a baby. These subtle burdens in your body, all the ones I just talked about, inflammation, trauma, sleep, gut dysfunction, they can add up into your body and put you in this low-grade survival mode. When we don't have the basic needs that your body needs to continue to survive, but it's just going to be in this low-grade survival mode where it's constantly looking to improve, get better, and looking for support. Sometimes it's not a big stress that's throwing off your cycle. It's the background noise. On to our last section. What to do if you're concerned. If you're feeling like your cycle isn't quite right, whether it's too short, it's irregular, it just feels off, you deserve to know. You deserve answers. You deserve to understand what's going on with your body. The good news is you don't have to wait for a specific prescription to start feeling good and start healing. Signs that your body might need progesterone support. Spotting before your period starts, short cycles or luteal phases under 10 days, trouble conceiving despite normal cycles, anxiety, weepiness, or irritability after ovulation, trouble sleeping in the second half of your cycle, mid-cycle ovulation pain or inconsistent temperatures, recurrent early pregnancy loss, or chemical pregnancies. Before you ever run a test, you can start shifting your body into a state where progesterone thrives. How do we do that? Nourish your body. Prioritize nutrient-dense whole foods, protein, healthy fats, leafy greens, and root veggies. Include progesterone-supportive nutrients, all the ones we talked about, but also B6, magnesium, zinc, vitamin C, cholesterol. I'm pretty sure that's actually exactly what we talked about. Add fiber-rich foods like carrots to support estrogen clearance. Support your blood sugar. Eat meals that include protein, fat, and fiber to prevent crashes and cortisol spikes. Again, protein, fat, and fiber, protein, fat, and fiber, protein, fat, and fiber. You're going to remember it. Avoid skipping meals or extreme diets. Track your cycle. Use a fertility awareness method app to identify your ovulation, or you can track your basal body temperature and your cervical mucus. Note patterns in your mood, food, sleep, and energy. Regulate your nervous system. Chiropractic adjustments, breath work, journaling, walking, gentle movement. Shift out of your fight or flight and into rest or digest, or into balance of both. Support the gut and liver. Daily bowel movements are a non-negotiable for hormone balance. Hydrate, move, consider castor oil packs in the follicular phase. The castor oil packs are hit or miss for some people. It may work for you. It may not work for you. That's okay. Something to look up, pique your curiosity if you're interested. Seed cycling with flax pumpkin seeds, pre-ovulation, and then sesame sunflower seeds post-ovulation. Acupuncture for cycle regularity and stress regulation. These all may sound simple, but they work when they're done consistently, and your body responds to safety, nourishment, and flow. I have to come back to what I was saying about track your cycle, because we talked about it earlier, talked about it again. I have one more note. A couple months ago, I had the worst to date, the worst period I've ever experienced, ever. And I don't think about periods like that. Like, there's not worsts, there's not bests. They just are who I am. But holy moly, I had a period a couple months ago that really took me out. I the cramps were so bad that I was vomiting. I've never vomited during a period. And I didn't go to work. I've never missed work or school because of a period. So in light of the most intense period I've ever experienced, one of my really close friends, Sarah, got me a book called Period Power, which I have been learning so much about my cycle. Even though I know a ton about my cycle and I know a ton about the human body, I'm learning even more about my cycle and how to support it. It's an incredible book. If you're not pregnant and you're looking, even if you aren't pregnant and you're postpartum and you're looking to better support your cycle now, it is a fantastic book to better understanding your cycle. And she also got me a period tracker journal, so I can actually follow my period and follow my cycle and see where I feel different things, where my hormones are, where my mood is, where my sleep is, and actually follow my cycle so that I can better understand every nuance in my cycle. I feel like my awareness of my body has skyrocketed just from understanding my cycle. It is a huge driver of the female body, so I don't know why we don't learn more about it in school or in some fashion in our life, but every woman deserves to understand and feel empowered by their cycle the way that I am starting to feel now. So I really hope that if you need some empowerment in knowing your cycle, figuring out your cycle, go read Period Power. I don't know who it's by. I can maybe leave it in the show notes. But go read Period Power. It's phenomenal. And then start tracking your cycle. There are so many different cycle tracking books. I always am hesitant about the apps. I know I said it in here. I know a lot of people like using apps. I'm hesitant about using apps because of the amount of data and information shared between our apps and our government now. And so just something to be thoughtful that maybe everybody in the world doesn't need to know where you are on your cycle, but maybe your little notebook at home can keep track for you. So something to think about. I hope that this was insightful. If it was helpful at all to you, please share with another mama-to-be. You can share with your doula, midwife, again, anybody in your life that might find this information interesting. You can even share it with your husband. If your husband and you are trying to find ways to better support your pregnancy or your fertility journey, food is a fantastic way to actually dive into supporting hormones through natural ways and just learning more about food and nutrition and all the ways that nutrition helps support your bodies. I just got one of our clients, Rachel and Tom Sullivan's book, Meals She Eats, meals that Tom Sullivan had started putting together for his wife who was going through PCOS, still going through PCOS, but was having a hard time becoming pregnant. And so he started to shift all the food in their family and in how they were eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And what do you know? She got pregnant. So food is a great way. Include your husbands. This would be a great episode for them to learn about how to better support your hormones and what is actually happening and why your hormones might not be actually balanced and why you might feel crazy sometimes. But share this episode if you want to leave a comment, something that helped you during your preconception journey, something that you've learned. If you've tried the raw carrot salad, tell me how that's changed your experience or helped your body balance out that progesterone and estrogen levels. Leave a comment, leave a review, like, share, whatever feels good to you. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I'm Dr. Emily, and you've been listening to the Popped Podcast.